She was his mistake, he became her biggest regret. Part 1, The Humiliation, 2,000 Words. A life that looked perfect. Isabella Munro believed in love. At 24, she thought she had found it with Marcus Whitmore. He was 32, handsome, wealthy, and everything she thought she wanted. Marcus owned a successful investment company in Manhattan, drove expensive cars, and took her to the finest restaurants in New York City. Isabella worked as an architect at a mid-sized firm, specializing in affordable housing projects. She loved her work, designing homes for families who needed them most. Her designs were creative and practical, focused on bringing beauty to communities that others overlooked. But Marcus never understood her passion. "Why do you waste your talent on those projects?" he would ask, shaking his head. "You could be designing luxury penthouses, making real money. Instead, you're drawing plans for people who can barely afford rent." Isabella would smile and try to explain. "That's exactly why it matters, Marcus. Everyone deserves a beautiful home, not just the wealthy." He never seemed to hear her. But she loved him, or at least she thought she did. So she ignored the small comments, the way he checked his phone when she talked about her work, the way he introduced her as just an architect at his business events. The night everything changed. The invitation arrived on thick, cream-colored paper. Marcus was hosting a charity gala at the Plaza Hotel, one of the biggest social events of the season. 300 guests from New York's elite would attend. Isabella felt excited and nervous. This was important to Marcus, and she wanted to make him proud. She bought a new dress with money she had saved for months, a simple but elegant navy gown. She spent hours getting ready, wanting everything to be perfect. When Marcus picked her up that evening, he looked at her briefly and said nothing. No compliment. No smile. Just a quick glance at his watch. "We're late," he said. "Let's go." The Plaza Ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, casting golden light across the crowd of beautifully dressed people. Isabella recognized faces from magazines, wealthy business owners, celebrities, socialites. She felt out of place but held her head high. Marcus left her side almost immediately, networking with potential investors. Isabella stood alone near the champagne table, watching the crowd. She recognized Vivian Sterling across the room, a stunning blonde socialite known for her family's fortune and her collection of wealthy boyfriends. Vivian was laughing, surrounded by admirers, wearing diamonds that probably cost more than Isabella's entire year's salary. The public betrayal. An hour into the event, Marcus stepped onto the stage. The room fell silent. He was giving a speech about the charity, something about helping underprivileged communities. Isabella felt proud, thinking maybe he was starting to understand the importance of helping others. Then Marcus's eyes found her in the crowd. He smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was cold, almost cruel. "Before we continue," Marcus said into the microphone, his voice carrying across the silent ballroom, "I want to take a moment to talk about something personal. About relationships and knowing what you truly want in life." Isabella's stomach tightened. Something felt wrong. "For the past 2 years, I've been dating someone," Marcus continued. "A nice girl. Sweet. She's an architect who designs affordable housing projects." He paused, and some people in the crowd chuckled. "Yes, affordable housing. Not exactly glamorous work, is it?" Isabella's face burned. People were turning to look at her. She wanted to disappear, to run, but her legs wouldn't move. "Isabella Munro," Marcus said, pointing at her. "Stand up, Isabella. Let everyone see you." She shook her head slightly, but people were staring, waiting. Slowly, she stood, her hands trembling. "Look at her," Marcus said, his tone mocking. "Pretty enough, I suppose. But let's be honest, she doesn't really fit into this world, does she? She shops at regular stores, drives a 10-year-old car, and actually believes that designing cheap housing for poor people is meaningful work." The room was deadly silent now. Some people looked uncomfortable. Others whispered behind their hands. Isabella felt tears burning in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. The truth is, Marcus continued, I've realized that I need someone who matches my level. Someone sophisticated. Someone who understands the world I live in. He gestured toward the side of the stage, and Vivian Sterling walked up, her diamonds glittering, her smile perfect. She slipped her hand into Marcus's and kissed his cheek. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus announced, I'm pleased to introduce you to my fiancée, Vivian Sterling. We've been together for 6 months, and I've never been happier. The words hit Isabella like physical blows. 6 months. He had been cheating on her for 6 months while telling her he loved her. While letting her believe they had a future together. So, Isabella, Marcus said, looking directly at her, I think it's time we officially ended things. You're a nice girl, but you were never going to be enough for someone like me. You can see yourself out. The walk of shame. Isabella stood frozen for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. 300 pairs of eyes watched her. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked amused. Vivian smiled triumphantly from the stage. With every ounce of dignity she could gather, Isabella picked up her purse and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted for her like she was diseased. Each step felt impossible. She heard whispers, laughter, gasps of shock. She made it to the elevator before the tears came. Made it to the street before the sobs broke free. She stood on Fifth Avenue in her expensive dress, crying in the cold March night, while inside the plaza, the party continued without her. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend Sophia, just saw the video. Someone posted it online. Are you okay? Where are you? Video. Someone had recorded the whole thing and posted it. Her humiliation was now public, permanent, shareable. Isabella turned off her phone and walked. She walked for hours through Manhattan, not caring where she went, just needing to move. By the time she reached Sophia's apartment in Brooklyn, it was past midnight. Picking up the pieces. Sophia took one look at Isabella and pulled her inside. Oh, honey. I'm so sorry. Over the next few days, Isabella learned the full extent of her situation. The video of Marcus's speech had gone viral. Thousands of people had seen her public humiliation. Her social media was flooded with comments, some supportive, but many cruel. Worse, she discovered that Marcus owned the apartment she had been living in. One of his assistants called and told her she had 2 weeks to move out. 2 years of her life with Marcus, and she was left with nothing but embarrassment and a broken heart. She couldn't face going to work. The pitying looks from colleagues, the whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room, it was too much. She took a leave of absence, claiming family emergency. Sophia let her stay in her spare room. You're going to get through this, Sophia promised. He's garbage, Bella. Complete garbage. You deserve so much better. But Isabella didn't feel like she deserved better. She felt worthless. If Marcus could throw her away so easily, publicly mock everything about her, maybe she really wasn't enough. The letter that changed everything. 1 week after the gala, Isabella received an email that would change her life. It was from Thomas Ashford, a legendary architect based in London. He had seen her portfolio 3 months ago at an architecture conference and had been impressed by her affordable housing designs. Dear Ms. Monroe, the email read. I am reaching out to offer you a position with my firm in London. I have followed your work with great interest, and I believe your approach to community-focused design aligns with our values. I recently learned of your situation, not from gossip, but from a colleague who attended that unfortunate event. I want you to know that what I saw in that video was not a woman who should be ashamed, but a man who should be. Your grace under such cruel circumstances speaks volumes about your character. If you are interested in a fresh start and the opportunity to work on projects that truly matter, please consider joining us in London. We would be honored to have you. Isabella read the email 5 times, hardly believing it. Thomas Ashford was offering her not just a job but an escape. A chance to leave behind the city where everyone had seen her humiliation, to start over somewhere new. She looked around Sophia's tiny spare room, at the cardboard boxes containing her belongings, at her future in New York that suddenly felt suffocating. "I'm going to London," she told Sophia. Sophia hugged her tight. "Good. Go be amazing. Make that jerk regret every word he said." New beginnings. 2 months later, Isabella Munro stood in her new office in London, looking out at the Thames River. The city was grey and rainy, so different from New York's sharp edges and bright lights. But it felt like possibility. Thomas Ashford had been everything his email promised and more. He was 73, with kind eyes and a brilliant mind. He treated Isabella not as a victim or a charity case, but as a talented architect with valuable ideas. "Your designs have heart," he told her on her first day. "That's rare in this business. Don't ever lose that, no matter what anyone says." The work was challenging and fulfilling. Isabella threw herself into it, working late nights, learning everything she could from Thomas and the team. She designed a community center for a struggling neighborhood, a school that would serve underprivileged children, housing projects that prioritized both affordability and beauty. Slowly, very slowly, she began to heal. The pain didn't disappear. Some nights she still cried, still felt the sting of Marcus's words, but it became smaller, more manageable. She made new friends, explored London's streets and museums, discovered parts of herself that had been hidden during her relationship with Marcus. She stopped checking Marcus's social media. Stopped reading the comments on that viral video. Stopped letting him take up space in her mind. 6 months after arriving in London, Isabella won a small but prestigious award for sustainable community design. When she accepted it at the ceremony, she gave a short speech. "Thank you for this honor," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I design homes for people who need them because I believe everyone deserves beauty in their lives, regardless of their bank account. Someone once told me this work wasn't glamorous or important. But standing here today, seeing the impact these projects have on real families and real communities, I know that this is exactly where I'm meant to be." The audience applauded. Thomas Ashford beamed with pride. And Isabella felt, for the first time in months, like maybe she was going to be okay. She didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change in ways she couldn't imagine. The best was yet to come. Part 2, The Rise, 2,000 words. 2 years of transformation. 2 years after leaving New York, Isabella Munro was unrecognizable from the broken girl who had fled the Plaza Hotel. At 26, she had launched her own architecture firm, Munro & Associates, specializing in sustainable, community-focused design. Her company wasn't huge, but it was successful and growing. She employed 12 people, all passionate about using design to improve lives. They had completed projects across England, affordable housing developments, community centers, schools, and healthcare facilities for underserved areas. Isabella herself had changed dramatically. She carried herself with quiet confidence now. Her style was elegant but understated, well-tailored clothes in soft colors, minimal jewelry, her dark hair usually pulled back in a professional bun. She had learned to present herself with authority without trying to be someone she wasn't. But the biggest change was internal. Isabella had learned that her worth didn't depend on Marcus's opinion or anyone else's. She had built something meaningful with her own hands and mind. The humiliation that once defined her had become just one chapter in a much larger story. The magazine feature. "Ms. Munro, could you look this way, please?" Isabella smiled for the photographer as he snapped pictures in her firm's bright, modern office. Architectural Digest was doing a feature on emerging designers focused on social impact. Her work had caught the attention of their London editor, and now they were profiling her company. "Tell me," the interviewer asked, settling into a chair across from Isabella, "what drives your passion for affordable housing?" "It's not the most lucrative area of architecture." Isabella didn't hesitate. "Because everyone deserves to live somewhere beautiful." We spend so much energy designing luxury homes for the wealthy, but we forget that a single mother working 2 jobs also comes home exhausted at the end of the day. Shouldn't she have a space that feels welcoming? Shouldn't her children have natural light and safe places to play? The interviewer nodded, scribbling notes. I understand you left a position in New York to come to London. What prompted that move? Isabella had prepared for this question. She had decided long ago that she wouldn't hide her past, but she also wouldn't give Marcus the satisfaction of making her story about him. I needed a fresh start, she said simply. Sometimes you have to leave behind what's familiar to discover what you're truly capable of. The Royal Commission. 3 weeks after the magazine feature was published, Isabella received an unexpected phone call. Ms. Monroe? This is Catherine Webb from the Thornfield Foundation. His Grace, the Duke of Thornfield, read your interview in Architectural Digest. He's very impressed with your work and would like to meet with you regarding a potential project. Isabella's hand tightened on the phone. The Thornfield Foundation was one of England's most respected charitable organizations, focusing on poverty relief and community development. The Duke of Thornfield was known for his serious approach to philanthropy, not the superficial charity work that many wealthy people did for publicity, but genuine, hands-on efforts to create lasting change. I would be honored to meet with him, Isabella said. The meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday at the Foundation's headquarters in Westminster. Isabella spent the weekend preparing, researching the Foundation's work, reviewing her portfolio, and trying not to be nervous. Meeting Adrian. Adrian Blackwell, Duke of Thornfield, was not what Isabella expected. She had imagined someone older, stuffy, maybe a bit condescending. Instead, the man who stood to greet her when she entered the conference room was probably in his early 30s, tall and lean, with dark hair and striking blue eyes. He wore a simple suit without any of the pretension she associated with titles and wealth. Ms. Monroe, he said, offering his hand. His handshake was firm but not aggressive. Thank you for coming. Please, sit down. His assistant brought tea, then left them alone. Adrian opened a copy of Architectural Digest, turned to the feature on Isabella's work. I read this 3 times, he said. Your community center in Manchester, the one with the rooftop gardens and the shared workshop spaces, it's brilliant. You've created not just a building, but a framework for community connection. Isabella felt herself relax slightly. He understood. He actually understood what she was trying to do. Thank you, Your Grace. That was exactly the intention we wanted. Adrian, he interrupted gently. Please, just Adrian. I have a title, but I try not to let it get in the way of actual conversation. She smiled. Then please call me Isabella. For the next hour, they discussed architecture, community development, and the intersection of design and social good. Adrian was knowledgeable and genuinely passionate. He didn't just write checks for charity, he understood the complexities of poverty, the importance of dignity and agency, the way good design could change lives. I have a project I'd like you to consider, Adrian said finally. The Foundation has acquired land in East London, in an area that's been economically depressed for decades. We want to build a mixed-use development, affordable housing, a community center, spaces for small businesses, a health clinic, and a library. But it needs to be designed by someone who understands that architecture is about people, not just buildings. Isabella's mind was already racing with possibilities. That's ambitious. Beautiful, but complex. Exactly why I want you for the job, Adrian said. Will you do it? Yes, Isabella said without hesitation. Absolutely yes. Adrian smiled, and Isabella noticed how it transformed his serious face, making him look younger and more approachable. Excellent. I should warn you, I'm very hands-on with Foundation projects. You'll be seeing quite a lot of me. I think I can manage that, Isabella replied, surprising herself with the ease of the response. Working together. Over the following months, Isabella and Adrian worked closely on the East London project. They met twice a week, sometimes at the foundation offices, sometimes at Isabella's firm, occasionally at the project site itself. Adrian was unlike anyone Isabella had ever worked with. He was detail-oriented and demanding, but never dismissive. When they disagreed about design elements, he listened to her reasoning and often changed his mind. When she needed additional funding for a particularly ambitious feature, he found it. When she worked late into the night on renderings, he stayed too, bringing coffee and asking thoughtful questions. They developed an easy partnership, professional but warm. Adrian made her laugh with dry observations about foundation board meetings and aristocratic social obligations. Isabella shared stories about architecture school and the creative chaos of running a small firm. "You know what I appreciate about you?" Adrian said one evening as they reviewed plans. It was past 9 o'clock, and they were alone in the foundation's conference room, papers spread across the long table. "What's that?" Isabella asked, looking up from a drawing. "You don't treat me differently because of the title. Most people either fawn over me or are intimidated. You just treat me like a person." Isabella smiled. "You are a person. A person who happens to have strong opinions about window placement and community garden layouts." "Guilty," Adrian admitted with a grin. Then, more seriously, "I read about what happened to you in New York. I'm sorry you went through that." Isabella stiffened slightly. She hadn't expected him to bring this up. "How did you?" "The internet is unfortunately permanent," Adrian said gently. "Someone at the foundation recognized your name and mentioned it. I watched the video. I want you to know that man is an idiot. What he did was cruel and says everything about his character and nothing about yours." Isabella felt unexpected tears prick her eyes. "Thank you," she said quietly. "It was the worst night of my life. But it also pushed me to come here, to build something new. So in a strange way, I'm grateful for it." "That's remarkably generous of you," Adrian observed. "I'm not sure I would be so forgiving." "I'm not forgiving him," Isabella clarified. "I'm just choosing not to let him define me anymore." "There's a difference." Adrian looked at her with something in his eyes that Isabella couldn't quite read. Respect, certainly. Admiration. But also something warmer, something that made her pulse quicken. "Isabella," he said slowly, "I hope this isn't inappropriate, but I find myself looking forward to our meetings more than any other part of my week. And I don't think it's just about the architecture." Isabella's breath caught. She had felt it too, the pull between them, the way conversations lingered beyond what was professionally necessary, the warmth in his smile when he saw her. "It's not inappropriate," she said softly. "I've been looking forward to them too. A different kind of love." Adrian and Isabella's relationship developed slowly, carefully. They had both been hurt before, Adrian by an ex-fiancé who had been more interested in his title than in him, Isabella by Marcus's betrayal. They took their time, building friendship into something deeper. Their first date was simple, dinner at a quiet restaurant, no cameras or publicity, just two people talking and laughing until the place closed. Their first kiss happened weeks later, after a particularly successful presentation to the foundation board, in the quiet privacy of Isabella's office. What struck Isabella most was how different this felt from her relationship with Marcus. Adrian supported her career, celebrating her successes and encouraging her ambitions. He introduced her to his friends and colleagues with pride, never making her feel less than. He asked her opinion on foundation matters and actually listened to her answers. "You make me better," Adrian told her one night as they walked along the Thames, his hand warm around hers. "You challenge me to think differently, to see beyond my own perspective. I love that about you." "You do the same for me," Isabella replied. "You've helped me remember that I deserve respect and partnership, not just someone who tolerates me." 6 months into their relationship, Adrian invited Isabella to a foundation gala, not unlike the event where Marcus had humiliated her, but completely different in every way that mattered. "I know events like this might be difficult for you," Adrian said as they prepared to attend. If you want to leave at any point, just say the word. But Isabella found she wasn't afraid. Standing beside Adrian, wearing a beautiful emerald gown he had insisted on buying for her, she felt confident and secure. When he introduced her to aristocrats and politicians and business leaders, he did so with genuine pride. "This is Isabella Munro," he would say. "She's the brilliant architect designing our East London development." And, he would add with a warm smile, "She's the woman I'm in love with." The proposal. The East London project broke ground on a bright October morning. Isabella stood at the site, watching construction crews begin work on what would become a thriving community space. Adrian stood beside her, his arm around her waist. "You did this," he said. "You took an idea and made it real." "We did this," Isabella corrected. "It wouldn't exist without the foundation's support." "It wouldn't exist without your vision," Adrian countered. He turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Isabella, these past months with you have been the happiest of my life. You've taught me what real partnership looks like, what love should be." Isabella's heart began to race as Adrian dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Several construction workers nearby stopped to watch. "I know I'm supposed to ask your father's permission first or something traditional like that," Adrian said with a slight smile, "but you're your own person, and this decision is yours. Isabella Munro, will you marry me?" The ring was beautiful, a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, elegant but not ostentatious. It looked like something chosen specifically for her, not just expensive but meaningful. "Yes," Isabella breathed. "Yes, absolutely yes." As Adrian slipped the ring on her finger and stood to kiss her, the construction workers burst into applause. Isabella laughed, feeling joy so complete it almost hurt. 3 years ago, she had stood in the Plaza Hotel ballroom, humiliated and heartbroken, believing she would never be enough. Now she stood in a construction site in London, engaged to a man who loved her exactly as she was, about to build something that would help thousands of people. She had not just survived Marcus's cruelty. She had transformed it into fuel for something better. The news spreads. News of Isabella's engagement to the Duke of Thornfield spread quickly. It was announced in the Times, covered by society pages, shared across social media. Pictures of Isabella and Adrian appeared in magazines, a beautiful couple, clearly in love, both dedicated to charitable work. In New York, Marcus Whitmore saw the news on his computer screen and felt his stomach drop. The girl he had mocked, the woman he had publicly humiliated for not being sophisticated enough, was now engaged to actual royalty. More than that, she was successful, respected, happy. His own life had not gone as planned. Vivian had left him after 8 months, deciding she preferred a tech billionaire to an investment manager. His business had taken several bad hits. His reputation had suffered when several of his crueler moments were filmed and shared online, including his treatment of Isabella. He looked at the picture of Isabella and Adrian, her smile genuine and warm, his arm around her protectively, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Regret. Part 3, The Reckoning, 2000 words. Marcus's downfall. Marcus Whitmore stared at his computer screen, reading the headline for the third time, Duke of Thornfield engaged to acclaimed architect Isabella Munro. Below it was a photo of Isabella at some charity event, looking radiant in a silver gown, her hand clasped in Adrian Blackwell's, an engagement ring glittering on her finger. 3 years had passed since that night at the Plaza. 3 years since he'd humiliated her in front of New York's elite, certain he was trading up from a simple architect to a glamorous socialite. How spectacularly wrong he had been. His engagement to Vivian Sterling had lasted exactly 8 months. She'd left him the moment she met Cameron West, a 30-year-old tech billionaire worth 3 times what Marcus would ever be. She'd broken the engagement via text message while Marcus was on a business trip, and married Cameron 6 months later. The humiliation of being dumped by Vivian had been bad enough. But then his business had started failing. Several investments went sour. 2 major clients left after seeing videos of his cruel behavior toward Isabella, apparently treating people badly on camera was bad for business. His reputation in New York's business community had taken a serious hit. Now he lived in a smaller apartment, drove a less impressive car, and spent his evenings alone, scrolling through social media, watching Isabella's life unfold like a fairy tale he had kicked her out of. There she was at a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a community center she'd designed. At a foundation gala with Adrian, both of them laughing. Receiving an award for architectural excellence. Speaking at a conference about sustainable urban design. And in every photo, she looked happy. Genuinely, radiantly happy. Marcus poured himself another scotch and kept scrolling, torturing himself with what he'd thrown away. The invitation. When the cream-colored envelope arrived at his office, Marcus almost threw it away without opening it. But something made him look at the return address, the Thornfield Foundation, London. Inside was an invitation to a charity gala at the Savoy Hotel in London. The foundation was celebrating the completion of its East London development project and raising funds for similar initiatives. The event would be hosted by the Duke of Thornfield and his fiancée, Isabella Munro. At the bottom of the formal invitation was a handwritten note, "Marcus, I'm in New York for a series of presentations next week. The gala is the following weekend. I think it's time we spoke. Isabella." Marcus read the note 5 times, his hands shaking slightly. Why would Isabella want to see him? To show him what he'd lost? To humiliate him the way he'd humiliated her? He didn't care. He had to see her. He booked a flight to London the same day. Returned to the scene. The week before the gala, Isabella returned to New York for the first time since leaving 3 years ago. Her firm had been commissioned to present design proposals for a major affordable housing initiative in Brooklyn. The presentation would take place at the Riverside Hotel, the same company that owned the plaza. Isabella stood in her hotel room the night before the presentation, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. Sophia was with her, providing moral support. "How does it feel to be back?" Sophia asked. "Strange," Isabella admitted. "This city used to feel like home. Now it feels like someone else's life." "Are you nervous about seeing Marcus?" "I invited him to the gala," Isabella said quietly. "I sent him a personal note." Sophia's eyes widened. "Why would you do that?" Isabella turned from the window. "Because I need closure. I need to face him without fear, to show myself that I've truly moved past what he did. And maybe," she added thoughtfully, "he needs to see what his cruelty created, not a broken woman, but someone who built something beautiful despite him." "You're a better person than I am," Sophia said. "I would want to throw a drink in his face." Isabella smiled. "I did fantasize about that for a while. But real revenge isn't making him feel bad. It's showing him that his opinion never mattered in the first place." The presentation. The Brooklyn housing presentation took place in a grand ballroom, not the same one where Marcus had humiliated her, but similar enough to trigger memories. Isabella felt her stomach tighten as she entered, remembering that night 3 years ago, the stairs, the whispers, the long walk to the exit. But then Adrian's hand was on her back, steadying her. "You've got this," he murmured. "You're brilliant, and everyone here knows it." The presentation room was filled with city officials, developers, community leaders, and journalists. Isabella walked to the front with her team, set up their materials, and began to speak. "Good afternoon. My name is Isabella Munro, and I'm here to show you how we can create housing that's both affordable and extraordinary." For the next hour, Isabella presented their vision, a mixed-income development that would provide homes for families at various economic levels, designed with beauty and community in mind. She showed renderings, explained sustainable features, discussed how good design could reduce crime and increase property values. She spoke with confidence and passion, answering questions thoughtfully, incorporating feedback, demonstrating not just technical skill but deep understanding of what communities need. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Several committee members stood. The head of the city's housing authority approached her immediately, shaking her hand enthusiastically. Ms. Monroe, that was extraordinary. I think you've shown us exactly what this city needs. As Isabella packed up her materials, she saw him. Marcus stood at the back of the room, having slipped in during her presentation. He looked older, less polished than she remembered. His suit was nice but not extraordinary. His confidence seemed diminished. Their eyes met across the room. Marcus raised his hand in a small, uncertain wave. Isabella nodded acknowledgement, then turned back to the Housing Authority director, continuing their conversation. She wouldn't run from Marcus. But she also wouldn't drop everything for him. He could wait. The confrontation. 30 minutes later, after Isabella had finished talking with officials and journalists, Marcus approached. Adrian had stepped away to take a phone call, giving them a moment alone. Isabella, Marcus said. His voice was quieter than she remembered, less certain. That was an incredible presentation. Your work is really impressive. Thank you, Isabella replied politely, her tone professional but not warm. Could we talk? Maybe get coffee or... I'd prefer to do this here, Isabella interrupted gently. Whatever you need to say, you can say it now. Marcus glanced around at the people still lingering in the ballroom. Here? With everyone around? You didn't seem to mind an audience last time we had an important conversation, Isabella pointed out, her voice calm but pointed. Marcus flinched. That's fair. That's more than fair. He took a breath. Isabella, I was wrong. What I did to you at the plaza was cruel and unforgivable. I've watched your success over the past 3 years, and I've realized what an incredible mistake I made. You were always enough. More than enough. I was just too stupid and shallow to see it. Isabella studied his face. He looked sincere. Regretful. But she felt nothing, no satisfaction, no anger, no lingering pain. Just a distant sense of closure. Thank you for the apology, she said. I appreciate that it took courage to come here and say that. Is there any chance? Marcus started hopefully. No, Isabella said firmly but not unkindly. Marcus, I've moved on. I'm in love with someone who has never made me doubt my worth, not even for a second. Someone who celebrates my success instead of mocking it. The life you and I might have had together doesn't exist anymore, and honestly, I'm grateful for that. Because of the Duke, Marcus said, a hint of bitterness creeping into his voice. No, Isabella corrected. Because of me. I learned that my value doesn't depend on whether someone like you recognizes it. The Duke didn't rescue me, Marcus. I rescued myself. He just had the good sense to appreciate what I'd already become. Adrian returned then, his hand naturally finding the small of Isabella's back. He nodded politely to Marcus. Mr. Whitmore, I presume? Your Grace, Marcus said stiffly. I've heard a great deal about you, Adrian said, his tone neutral but his eyes sharp. I want to thank you, actually. Marcus looked confused. Thank me? If you hadn't been foolish enough to let Isabella go, she never would have come to London. I never would have met her. So in a way, your mistake created my happiness. I'm grateful for that. It was perfectly polite. Perfectly civil. And absolutely devastating. Marcus's face reddened. I should go. Isabella, congratulations on everything. I mean that. As he walked away, his shoulders slightly hunched, Isabella felt Adrian's arm tighten around her. Are you all right? Adrian asked quietly. I'm perfect, Isabella said honestly. That conversation went exactly how it needed to. The gala. The Thornfield Foundation Gala was held at the Savoy Hotel in London the following weekend. Unlike Marcus's event at the Plaza, this was a celebration not of ego but of genuine achievement. The East London development was complete, beautiful, functional, already home to hundreds of families and a thriving community. Isabella wore a stunning gown in deep burgundy, her hair swept up elegantly. Adrian looked handsome in his formal wear, though Isabella noticed how he kept finding excuses to touch her hand, her back, as if to reassure himself she was really there. The ballroom was filled with people who had worked on the project, architects, contractors, city officials, and most importantly, families from the East London community who had moved into the new homes. Marcus had flown to London for the event, accepting Isabella's invitation despite knowing it would be painful. He stood near the back of the room, watching as Isabella and Adrian made their rounds, greeting guests, laughing, clearly in love. Halfway through the evening, Adrian stepped onto the stage. The room fell quiet. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here tonight. We're celebrating something remarkable, a community built on the principle that everyone deserves beauty and dignity in their lives, regardless of their income." He gestured to Isabella. "This project would not exist without the vision and talent of my fiancée, Isabella Monroe. Isabella, could you join me up here?" Isabella climbed onto the stage, smiling at Adrian and then turning to the audience. "Thank you all for your support.